Okay, this is an infuriating story here. UN human rights expert Francesca Albanese, this part of it is not infuriating. This part of it is actually quite on point. Here she is reporting on the genocide in Gaza.
Following nearly 6 months of unrelenting Israeli assault on occupied Gaza, it is my solemn duty to report on the worst of what humanity is capable of, and to present my finding, the anatomy of a genocide. One of my key findings is that Israel's executive and military leadership and soldiers have intentionally distorted rules of international humanitarian law, distinction, proportionality, and precaution in an attempt to legitimize genocidal violence against the Palestinian people, by deliberately stretching the definitions of human shield, evacuation orders, warnings, safe zones, collateral damage, and medical protection. Israel has used their protective function as humanitarian camouflage, with the effect of concealing patterns of conduct from which the only inference can reasonably be drawn is a state policy of genocidal violence against the Palestinians. In light of this, I find that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the threshold indicating the commission of the crime of genocide against Palestinians as a group in Gaza has been met. Specifically, Israel has committed 3 acts of genocide with the requisite intent: causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, and imposing measures intended to prevent birth within the group.
Okay, so this is not the first time she has spoken out against Israel. Human rights expert that she is, makes sense. This wouldn't be her first time. We played a clip of hers way back, I think it was in December or January, where she detailed that you could argue that the simple forced evacuation of millions of people from their homes. Right now, we are at 1.9 million displaced in Gaza. That alone demonstrates a genocidal intent because you are attempting to make the current place unlivable. You are clearing it out. That is collective in nature. And so, you know, she has been a vocal critic of Israel for quite some time. But here she is formally laying out the case, as was made in the ICJ, that this is a genocide according to the letter of international law. Matthew Miller was asked about this at a State Department hearing, and watch what this guy says.
Did you see or read the report made by Francesca Albanese yesterday in Geneva, where she cited, what she showed was irrefutable, as far as she's concerned, irrefutable evidence that Israel engaged in genocide. Did you see the report? What is your comment on it?
I did see the report. Let me say a couple things about it. First, we have for a long-standing period of time opposed the mandate of this special rapporteur, which we believe is not productive. And when it comes to the individual who holds that position, I can't help but note a history of anti-Semitic comments that she has made that have been reported.
She made anti-Semitic comments?
She has, and comments she made in December that appeared to justify the attacks of October 7th. So I think it's important to take that into account. But with respect to the report itself, we have made clear that we believe that allegations of genocide are unfounded. But at the same time, we are deeply concerned by the number of civilian casualties in Gaza, and that's why we have pressed the government of Israel on multiple occasions to do everything it can to minimize those civilian casualties.
You defunded UNRWA.
Once again, we have requested that the press corps does not bring garlic or crucifixes into the room. I'm feeling a little peckish. Please put those away.
Oh, yeah, no, we've made very clear to them that civilian life is of the utmost importance. That's why we just defunded UNRWA for 1 year. It's going to go bankrupt after 60 days. It's not going to be able to exist, in all likelihood, into this summer. 2 other points there. On the first, she made anti-Semitic comments. This is referring to, apparently, from what I could dig up on this, a Facebook post in 2014 that she made referring to the Israel lobby as the Jewish lobby. Now, I don't condone that. I think it's a mistake. I think it's a slip up. I do my best not to do that. But you know what? It happens every once in a while, and it's a mistake.
Even we do it sometimes.
Even we do it sometimes. It's a mistake. I don't think you should say that, obviously, because Jews ourselves here, we don't have a lobby. You should correct yourself if you do. Okay, all's fair. But you know what? It's an understandable mistake given the fact that as of today, 80% of Jews back Israel. So it's a mistake, sure, point taken, but it's not an unforgivable one. It's a very easy one to make given the level of support amongst Jews for what is going on right now. As for that first point that he made, she said she justified the October 7th. Here's what she says on October 9th, 2 days afterwards. Necessary to stand with both Israelis and Palestinians, UN reporter says. Nazi. This is an Al Jazeera piece from 2 days after October 7th. This is what she feels. Francesca Albanese, the United Nations Special Rapporteur or reporter on the occupied Palestinian territories, has warned of a dangerous narrative about the Israel-Hamas conflict that ignores the history of violence against Palestinians. At least 1,100 people have been killed since Hamas, the Palestinian group that controls the blockaded Gaza Strip, launched an assault on Israeli towns on Saturday and took hundreds of people hostage. Israel retaliated by declaring a state of war and pounding densely populated Gaza, killing hundreds of people. Now, of course, this was 2 days after. We obviously know what the death toll is now, right? It's almost 100 times that by now. Albanese said the international community should be wise and even-handed when tackling the result of decades of oppression imposed on the Palestinians, brutalization, structural violence, of course, punctuated also by eruptive violence. Like many, this is her quote 2 days after, October 7th. Like many, I am totally petrified by what is happening. I am totally shocked and appalled by the violence, Albanese told Al Jazeera on Sunday evening from Tunisia's capital, Tunis. But before anything else, I am horrified by the narrative, by the discourse, because it is possible and necessary to stand both with the Palestinians and the Israelis without resorting to ethical relativism, to selective outrage, or worse, calls for violence. So as you could see, 2 days after, she did the opposite of what this liar said she did. He said she justified. She says we should stand with Israelis and Palestinians, both, and that she is, what did she say? Totally shocked and appalled by the violence. So you just totally smear the UN human rights expert when she comes out with a conclusive report in her mind that, yes, genocide is being done according to the letter of international law. So this is why we say rhetoric is shifting, because attitudes are shifting, and we're going to get to shifting attitudes in our next piece. But the policy is not changing. They've defunded UNRWA. Now you come out with two really nasty smears and lies about this woman who's been right on this issue for years and who has been speaking in a very measured way since October 7th, saying we need peace so that people stop getting killed on both sides. Now, she pins the blame where I pin the blame. Yes, this is all Israel's fault. Israel is an occupying power. It's all the state of Israel's fault. We don't wish harm on the Israeli people. We don't wish harm on anybody. That's what she just said right there. That's exactly what she said right there. And this piece of shit goes in front of a microphone and just, I mean, that is borderline slander, what he said.
The problem with using these kinds of accusations in such a knee-jerk way to shield yourself from actual debate and conversation is the accusation loses its power, and that's actually really dangerous, because you need to be able to call out anti-Semitism where it exists. You need to be able to call out racism where it exists. These hustlers who just throw it out there to deflect responsibility are endangering lives. They are doing what they claim others are doing. They always use that formulation. People are endangering lives. No, you're fucking endangering lives. You are, as a Jewish person, if there's anything that makes me feel unsafe, it's these fucking psychos. These psychos who are going to get me caught up by association with themselves.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. And there's one final piece here that I want to play. Sorry, I accidentally got rid of the video. I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back to here because he actually kind of addresses what you just said there.
A number of civilian casualties in Gaza, and that's why we have pressed the government of Israel on multiple occasions to do everything it can to minimize those civilian casualties.
Yeah, well, she's been getting a lot of death threats and other threats and so on, because people think she made anti-Semitic comments and so on. Let me just go on to another topic.
You can't make a comment like that without letting me respond. Obviously, death threats against anyone are inappropriate.
Okay, so then stop smearing her. Like if you don't want her to get death threats, if that's inappropriate, then stop spreading the most malicious lies imaginable about her, which is that she's an anti-Semitic terrorist is basically what you called her. You called her a terrorist sympathizer. So of course she's going to get threats if you parrot those lies about her. So if you really fucking don't want her to be threatened, then stop fucking making up these outrageous lies about her.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen these psychopathic settlers blocking the aid while cooking up popcorn?
Yeah,
you don't need to give these guys a lot of excuse to threaten somebody's life. Like like Count Moloch over here cares what happens to her.
Yeah. If you gave a shit what happens to her, if you gave a shit that she was being threatened, you'd stop smearing her in these ways, right? Because you put out those kinds of lies about somebody, of course they're going to catch threats. Right. Of course, it's inevitable.
Please clap.